I'm Karen Nelson, and you're listening to Becoming You Again, episode number 110. Welcome to Becoming You Again, the podcast to help with your mental and emotional well-being during and after divorce. This is where you learn to overcome the trauma of your divorce by reconnecting with yourself, creating lasting emotional resilience, and living a truly independent life so your life will be even better than when you were married. I'm your host, Karen Nelson. Hello, my lovely ladies. I am excited for you to listen to today's episode. You're going to be hearing an interview where I am talking with Darlynn Childress, who is a parenting coach, and we had such a great conversation about how to raise emotionally healthy children, especially from the perspective of being a single divorced parent. And I think you're going to learn so much from our conversation, and I really hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, here is mine and Darlynn's conversation. All right. Welcome back to the podcast, my friends. Today, we have a very fun treat. I am joined by Darlynn Childress. She is a life and parent coach who spends most of her days helping moms stop feeling like crap and actually enjoy their kids. That sounds amazing, first of all. She is the host of the Become a Calm Mama podcast, and she is the founder of the online Calm Mama Club community, where she shares practical tips and tools for parents. Darlynn, thank you so much for being here on the podcast today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you. Me too. I love this, Karen. And I love your podcast, Becoming You Again, and really what you offer to your clients, to the people you work with. A lot are moms, from what I understand. And you talk a lot about their nervous system and regulating their own stress response and how to take care of themselves and heal. And I love all of that. It's a lot of the work that I do. And so we are like kindred spirits in that way. I love that.
Yes, I love it too. I think that, obviously, divorced women, who is my main, audience for the podcast, most of them have kids and most of them struggle as a parent. And that is truly the reason I wanted to invite you on, so that you could speak to those women who might be really struggling with trying to navigate what it's like to be a single parent, what it's like to co-parent, and what it's like to try and figure out, what do I do with these kids now that I'm all on my own? I don't have somebody to lean on. And especially in those situations where, you might not be on the same page as the parent who's parenting in the other house. Can you kind of speak to that a little bit, about maybe your take on where you even start with parents when they come to you and they're frustrated and they're not really sure what to do with their kids?
Yeah. Well, I always start with calm. I have a parenting process that I teach. It's 4 steps, and the steps are calm. That's step 1. And that is about the individual, the parent themselves, calming their own stress response and their nervous system and regulating themselves, so that we can do what is step 2 is connect. And the connect tool that I teach is a lot about emotionally coaching your children through their stress response and through their big feelings. And we can talk a lot about that on this. I hope we talk about this on this episode, but we can't really offer our children genuine compassion and help them regulate their nervous system when we are activated.
Oh, I totally agree. And I can totally relate to exactly what you're saying, because for me, like, this has been something that I have struggled with. I feel like I'm in a good place right now as a parent, where I am able to really step into the space of allowing my kids to feel their emotions and giving them the space that they need to be able to do that, and not having to try and fix their emotions. But I have a daughter, and you may not know this, but I talk about this on the podcast a little bit. She is clinically diagnosed depression and anxiety. And so sometimes, previous to learning about the nervous system and learning about myself being calm first, when, if she has an anxiety attack, I would be very anxious about her anxiety, and I would be showing up as like this frenzied, we've got to fix this, calm down, why are you feeling this way, kind of a person. And it was stressful for me. I'm sure it was stressful for her. And so I totally understand that idea of really getting yourself to a calm place first, so that then you can show up for them in a very connective way.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that connection piece is really when you think about what is gentle parenting, connected parenting, conscious parenting. There's so many different labels, compassionate parenting. When I was trained as a parenting educator, I learned nonviolent parenting. It's all the same ideas of approaching our children from that feelings first lens instead of a behavior first lens. And
Yeah.
it's not feelings only, and it's not behavior only, it's feelings
Yeah.
first, then behavior. So when I teach my parenting philosophy, I won't go all the way into it, but we go calm, connect, limit set, correct. So I do teach a
Yeah.
model, a parenting model that includes limit setting and creating boundaries. And I teach parents how to set boundaries. And when that comes up with the co-parenting of like, what do our limits need to be the same in one house or another house? And the truth is no, it doesn't need to be that way. I like to think about it how kids know what it's like to be with different teachers, especially
Mm.
middle school and high school. You have six different teachers, and then you go to those different classes and you know what to expect when you're in that one classroom. You know what you can get away with this teacher, you know what this teacher likes, and how, this one doesn't mind if you're late, and this one cares a lot, and this one lets us out early, and this one doesn't have a bathroom pass. They know,
I
and they're
love
able
this.
to move through the different environments and know what to expect and know what the boundaries are in those different rooms.
Yes, that is such a good analogy because it's so true. I have so many women who are coming to me and who are so frustrated with the either very strict parenting or lack of parenting they feel that is happening at the
Mm-hmm.
other parent's house. And then they get their kids back and they just don't know what to do. They're like, do I set even stricter boundaries? Do I get upset with my kids for acting this way? Do
Mm-hmm.
I just let the boundaries go out the window and not have any control over my kids? They're just so confused on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that analogy, just in and of itself, really lays everything out of like, no, this is possible. Like, you
Uh-huh.
can co-parent even if your other parent is not on the same page as you at all. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. And learning to set those boundaries, because I think sometimes with parenting we think we either have to be very strict and, laying down all the rules, or we try and connect with them through their emotions, and then we don't have any rules at all because we just don't become a parent at all, because then that
Yeah.
might make them feel a certain way, or you know
Yeah.
what I mean. And
Yes.
so I love these 4 steps that you've laid out,
Mm-hmm.
where you connect first through emotions, but then you also have limits and you learn how to set those boundaries.
Yeah.
Beautiful,
Yes,
beautiful.
exactly. I was just thinking about the example you said, when your child comes back from the other parent's house, and I was thinking about an elementary school teacher who is their kids all with PE or something, or recess, and they're in the yard, and that then they come back and they're still wild and they still have rambunctious energy, or they've gone to the music class and the music teacher's really strict or whatever it is, and then that teacher, the regular teacher, has to come back and say, okay, we're back in this classroom and this is how it works in here, and resetting everybody and
Yeah.
not blaming the PE teacher or being resentful towards the music teacher and trying to overcompensate or undercompensate for whatever happened. It's like, no, let's just parent the children that are directly in front of us right now and meet the emotional and physical needs that are in front of us.
Yes. Gosh, that is such a beautiful saying of just let's parent the children that are in front of us right now. It so goes along with what I talk about when it comes to really regulating your nervous system
Mm-hmm.
and feeling safe and calm right now, because bringing everything back to the here and now is where it's all at, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, trying to blame or resent the parent from whatever they did or didn't do when the kids were at their house really takes it back to the past, and really
Yeah.
focusing on what was happening then, and then wondering, is this going to happen every time, and really worrying about the future. And so really just like centering yourself as a parent and saying, listen, these are the kids that I have right now, they're right in front of me. What kind of a parent do I want to be? How do I want to show up for them in this moment? And can I let go of this past, what happened here, and this future of what might happen, and really just focus on the here and now.
Yes. I say, parent the kid in front of you, not the one you wish you had or the
Uh,
one you're afraid they'll become. And
oh
I don't
yeah.
have, my brain's not working fast enough to think about how that works with like your co-parent. situation, but I'm just thinking like, you know, parent the kid in front of you, not the one you wish your co-parent would have parented or the one you're afraid your co-parent will parent. Like,
I
so,
love it. It's like
you know,
this circular, like,
yes, but it's like right here, right now. Yes. What are the rules? What are the limits that need to be communicated? What are the big feelings? Like, I think what I have a lot of parents who I coach who, come, their kids have experienced divorce. They're recovering. The parent is recovering from divorce. And the transition day is always a challenge, and anticipatory um, grief can come up the before the transition. So if your children don't want to go to the co-parent's house for whatever reason, or they don't want to come back to your house, right? Like
yeah.
it might even be thinking about either of those scenarios, like, oh, I never want to come back from dad's because you're so strict. I like going to dad's. It's so much better there. He doesn't care. He lets me watch whatever I want. He lets me stay up. We always eat,
Mm.
Cheetos and Jack in the Box, and I love it there. And,
I
you
love
know,
that word anticipatory grief because I talk a lot about grief on the podcast and really processing it through just in terms of your divorce and what you thought your life might have looked like or what you thought it was going to be or what you left behind or any of that. But I really hadn't ever thought about it in terms of from the child's perspective and that being at one parent's house and thinking about, oh no, now I have to go, to the other house. And I have kids and I can't say that they're like, I think that my kids are very well rounded and they're doing very well and they have with the divorce, but just even thinking about, their experience from that perspective of anticipatory divorce,
mhm, mhm,
that just puts things into a whole new perspective, I think, for me. And I'm sure for many of my listeners who do struggle when their kids have to go to another parent's house or are having, this maybe fight of like, why do they never want to be here? Why are they always so upset when they get here or something like that? And that is such a smart way of thinking about it. Can you just speak just a tiny bit more on
mhm,
um, how you kind of help parents recognize that and what they might be able to do if there's a tip that you could give them to
mhm.
help them if they're recognizing this anticipatory grief that might be showing up?
Yeah. Well, I think looking at our children's behavior from the lens of thinking that this is a form of communication and that there is always something going on underneath the behavior. And so when you're noticing maybe they're going to transition on Thursday night, and Monday, everything seems great. They're having a good time. And Tuesday, everything's fine, no conflict. And then Wednesday afternoon, it starts to get a little bit tense. It's time to pack because they're going to go straight from school, or that there's not going to be a lot of time. And remember, you're going to dad's, and you got to, if you want to bring anything for the weekend, you kind of maybe have those reminders. And all of a sudden, you see a change in mood. You see a change in uh, like disconnection from you. Maybe they pull back or they start fighting, complaining about things. The favorite shirt's not washed, something, right? And our normal reaction is to stay sort of in that circumstance and talking about the thing that's in front of you. Like, well, you should have told me to wash your shirt. I didn't know. You already have that shirt at dad's. It's not that big of a deal. We start to like talk them down
Yeah.
from their feelings, or if they're acting out towards us, don't talk to me like that. That's disrespectful. That's not okay. You don't talk to your
Yes.
mother like that. Would you talk to your dad like that? Are you going to go to dad's tomorrow? Oh my God, right? We all know. It's not,
Yeah.
I don't actually have a video camera at any of your houses.
But I'm sure so many of us can relate to exactly
Yeah.
that conversation, right?
Yes. Yes, right. Because it is common. It's how we respond to the external behavior. And my invitation to your audience, your listeners, is to take a beat and think like this is pain talking,
Mm.
or these are feelings being expressed. Yeah. I love the
And
phrase acting out. People, oh, they're acting out so much. They've been acting out a lot lately. And I'm like, ooh, what are they acting out?
I love it so much. That's amazing. Yeah, I think that is such an important thing for parents to understand. And I think in a previous conversation we'd had, you had said something about the the emotion being like this underlying thing, like this underlying something that's happening that doesn't really have anything to do with what's going on the surface. It doesn't really have
Yeah.
anything to do with you, even most of the time. It really
Right.
has to do with what is going on for them. And that is where that step of calm comes in so that you
Mhm.
can figure out, like, okay, what's really going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. And the calm, I think of it in two ways. We have to calm our physiological nervous system, right? Like we're going to have, your kid starts yelling at you, or they're like, wash this shirt right now. And you're going to feel stressed.
Yeah.
And because now it's like going to take more time, or you don't have time for this, or that you don't have the energy for it. And your body is going to respond. So we have to reset our stress through our body first. And that means I always say, like, move your body or move your mind. So first we want to start with moving our body. And that could just look like, um, I need a minute to think. I don't want to talk to you right now because I don't want to yell at you, or this is a lot. Give me a break, give me a second, and then go do something to reset your own nervous system. And when I first start working with someone, sometimes it's really silly, like go to your room, do 10 jumping jacks,
Yeah.
or go to the bathroom, or wash your hands, or put on lipstick or lip balm, or get a piece of gum, or drink some water, or go outside for a second. Like, people always say, oh, take deep breaths. I don't really coach that way because it's helpful, but you also need to be doing something physiologically with your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I explain that to my clients very often as completing that stress cycle
Hmm.
of like really like the stress is there, right? Your kid's yelling at you, they're upset with whatever, and
Hmm.
you have an immediate reaction because you're human, right?
Hmm.
As a
Hmm.
parent, you're a human and you feel emotions. And so if we just leave it there, we can process through, of course, that emotion, but completing that stress cycle, the best way to do it is always through some kind of movement. And I love those options of, what does my body need right now? What can I do to really complete this stress cycle and get this
Hmm.
out? And then go return and, figure out how we want to approach what's
Yeah.
happening with the
Yeah.
child in this moment.
Well, and then that part is the move your mind, because we have
Mm,
we have the trigger, right? The external circumstance that our amygdala was like, hey, danger, danger,
right.
respond, right? Fight, flight, freeze, faint. I just learned about fawn. And I also learned about flock recently. There's all these different reactions that we have. So we either, are aroused or unaroused, like disassociate. I think of that as emotionally checking out. So we all have
Right.
our strategies. And but really, how do we train ourselves to not get triggered in the first place? And that is really the mindset work about reframing behavior, reframing the way that we view our children's behavior, and learning how to think like I said, like, this is pain talking. This is feelings being expressed. This is a form of communication. And then we can get to what's underneath the behavior. Like you were saying, you have the external circumstance, and that is a lot of times where we spend most of our time as parents, is correcting behavior.
Right.
But what is driving the behavior is a big feeling or an unmet emotional need.
Yeah.
And if we address that, the behavior will probably fix itself. Not
Mm,
always, but your child will be a lot more likely to comply, to connect, to talk it through, to rationalize. When we come at them from that high intense lecture place, and correcting without that first connecting to their big feelings, then we're activating their stress response. We're deepening them into their own stress reactivity,
yeah.
and cutting off thinking.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to really understand this concept of like not taking what they're doing or the way they are reacting to their emotions as
Mhm.
something, as a personal affront to you or the way you're parenting or what you said or what's happening. Because truly, when you can get to this space of like, I've taken a few minutes to complete my stress response or calm myself down or whatever, and I'm working on, creating this new mindset of understanding for my child. That puts you in a space where you can step in and go, now let's kind of take a look at emotions and what this even means. We were probably raised very similar to, we don't really feel our emotions.
Yeah.
Okay. You either pretend they're not there, you hide from them, you cover them up with food or something else,
Mm-hmm.
or you're just not connected to emotions in that way. And of course, it would make sense that our kids also have been taught those things if we were raised to learn that as well. And so really opening up the space where, like, what are you feeling? What is happening inside that
Mm-hmm.
is creating this, and letting them know that this is a safe space where they can express that if they need to.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. There's so much there to unpack for a second. I love exactly what you're saying is like we calm in order to connect. And
Yeah.
that's I think some of the work people, different coaches will do is they'll just focus on the parent's emotional regulation and not necessarily teach these emotional coaching tools. And some programs will teach how to be a gentle parent or connect with feelings, but don't talk about the dysregulation that we feel as a parent. So we're in a relationship with our children, and yes, we're going to be activated by their behavior, and then we're going to need to do the work to get calm, and then we can do that emotional coaching. So the thing that I wanted to unpack there for a second is like, how? Like, how do you said, like, oh, we want to communicate this is a safe place. We actually cannot say that. They have
Mm,
to feel safe in order to connect.
yeah. To want to
To
open up.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Yeah.
we can say all we want, and this is what I notice when parents start working with me is that they have an old pattern of being reactive to behavior and to, lecturing or criticizing and, empty threats and those kinds of things. All good, all natural, all how we were all raised, right?
Right.
Um, and then they'll change, the parent will change. So they'll start to like see behavior as a form of communication and they'll start to regulate their own nervous system and they approach their child from this connective lens. And then their kid won't give them the goods.
They won't quite show up the way the parent was really hoping they were going to once they
Yes.
started acting a little different, right?
Yes. And they're like, then they'll say to me, it's not working. They're not opening up. They don't want to talk about their feelings. I'm doing it right. Or am I doing it right? And
Right.
it's like there is a lag, there's a gap because your child has been watching you for however long they've been alive, or been in your care, that they know like how you are and they know when you're going to react and when you're not going to react and like they've got your number as they
Yeah.
say, and
Kids are very good at reading their parents,
they
right?
have to be. That's part of their self-protective factor. It's like
Yeah.
in order for them to know whether they are safe or not, they're going to always be scanning their own environment, and their environment is scanning the adults.
Right.
Are the adults okay? I'm okay. Are the adults not okay? I'm not okay. That's
And if
it.
I open up about this, it might not be safe. It might,
Yes,
in
they
the past, it hasn't necessarily been safe for me to do this.
yeah, they turn
So,
it on me. Right. And then or they blame my dad. Right? Like if you have an old pattern of like bringing up your ex in relationship with your child, they're not going to feel safe. So there's the lag. We have to trust the relationship is strong enough that your child will trust you
yeah.
and that they're going to get there and you're going to keep showing up even if you don't get all the goo about all their big feeling cycle, like whatever's going on underneath, you are going to keep pursuing. And then how do we pursue? I I think the tendency in parenting is to ask, how are you feeling?
Mm,
What you said, why are you feeling this way? What are you thinking? What's going on for you? And really, emotional literacy is the ability to name what you're feeling, to know what it's called, the thing inside, and then be able to
Yeah,
put words to it and talk about it and then know what to do with it. And children are emotionally illiterate.
right.
So we have to teach them what that messy thing inside is called.
And so when you are kind of walking parents through this for, let's say, even the first time, and you're
Mhm.
teaching them, this is how you show up as the example, I'm taking it as from what you're saying is you show up as the example. You don't give up after 2 minutes of, trying this out and the kid isn't responding in the way that you want. You keep going, you keep showing up as this parent that you want to be. Does that mean that when you're noticing that your child might be feeling anger or whatever, I mean, how do you approach that? Because my initial thought is to say something like, if you ask them how they're feeling, or I don't know how you would approach it, but say something like, I've felt angry before, and when I feel it, I get a tightness in my stomach and my face gets hot or my chest gets tight or something, kind of describing to them ways that they can, put words to what they're feeling. But tell me how you
Mhm.
approach that.
Yeah, this is good. I I really do think about children like I can get into a kid's brain pretty easily and like how self-centered they are. And when you start talking about yourself, they're like, "Ugh, she's going to talk about
They
herself
shut
now." Like,
off, they shut
yeah,
down.
like we think we're doing such a good job, and I don't.
I love it.
It's like they're like, oh, she would just want to talk about her anger, or and you're not. You're
Yeah.
so beautiful the way you described it, and it's exactly right, and it's
But from a
amazing.
kid's perspective,
Like,
it
here's my
may come
mom
off
lecturing me
completely
about
different.
anger or whatever.
I love it so much.
Yeah. Um, and then was going to say, like, oh, I've been at this for 2 minutes and it's not working. I think I'd like to put a pin right there just to say, I would rather you think about it. I've done this 200 times
Mm,
and it hasn't worked.
yeah.
Because when we become attached in one moment to a result, we might stick in it when the relationship isn't allowing for that freedom in that particular moment. And so we want to respect that other person isn't open right there, and then that, and making that be okay. Like, that's how we create safety. It is okay for you to share, and it is okay for you to not.
Yeah. Just letting them be what they are and who they are in the moment,
Yeah.
not needing them to show up in any different kind of way.
Yeah. And just trusting, like, at some point when they're ready, I have communicated 200 times that I'm
Yeah.
ready, that I can
That I'm
handle it.
here, that,
I can, big feelings don't scare me. I
yeah.
don't get overwhelmed. I can take it. I can take it if you've got stuff to say about me. I can take it if you've got stuff to say about your sibling, your teacher, school, your other parent. I can handle it. This reminds me, when I was first learning this, I took my son, he was 5, to attachment therapy. And one of the exercises was for my son to take a yellow phone book, yellow pages,
Yeah.
and rip it all up and just go crazy and create a huge mess. And then he sat down and I held it all. And I put all that mess into a pillowcase. And it was to visually show my son, I can handle it.
Oh,
You
wow.
can make a huge, huge mess, and I've got it. It is not a
Mm,
problem for me. Your
that's
feelings are not a
amazing.
problem for me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love just allowing your kids to see that in whatever way that looks for them.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, we know that we can't control them, and we can't control what the thoughts are in their head and what's happening in their body. Like, maybe we control the environment a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but overall we really can't. And so really just stepping into this space of like, I'm going to be this mom who is going to love and appreciate my child for who they are right now in this moment, even if that doesn't look at all like the picture that I wanted it or thought that it was going to
Mm-hmm.
look like, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and
Sometimes I
knowing
think,
that like nothing has gone wrong
yes,
if
right.
that's the
If they're
case.
upset or hurt or sad yes, we think we tend to think that if our kid is struggling, we've done something wrong. And really, struggle is actually quite healthy, and resilience is built through pain and discomfort. And, having your children go through a separation, a divorce, it
Yeah.
can be really easy to think I've ruined them, I've destroyed their life, or, they're never going to be the same. You're right. They're never going to be the same because they've gone through something hard. And we want to show them that they are strong enough, that they can overcome it, that they can be sad, they can be disappointed, they can have all those feelings, and those feelings are temporary. And they
Yeah.
come and they go, and they'll come back and they'll go away, and they'll lessen and they'll intensify. It's okay.
Yeah. This is
Yeah, that's
all so beautiful. All right. There was something that I wanted to touch on. And it was actually a post that you had posted yesterday or maybe the day before on your Facebook page. And it was something about your specific life growing up. And it was something that you said about your mom. And it was something I didn't write down exactly what it was, but it was something about um, you went through struggles, obviously, as most children do, right?
mm-hmm.
Growing up. But you came out okay, and you felt like a very resilient, you know, high functioning human being.
Yeah.
And why was that? And
Mm-hmm.
something that I'm sure you know exactly what the answer is that I'm looking for here, but you put something, the most beautiful thing on there. And I would love for you to share why you think you came out as a resilient, high functioning human that you are. If
Yeah.
you could just share that and maybe speak
Oh,
on that a little bit.
thank you for asking. It's fun for me to think about this. So I did grow up in a really chaotic family, child of divorce, but that's like the least of it. It just, um, my mom was an, this was in the 80s. So there wasn't a lot of discussion around mental health. And so she was untreated, clinically depressed. And then my dad was abandoned us when we were little, and, no child support, deadbeat dad, and lots of abuse and addiction, abandonment, all those things. So I look at my life and I'm like, how in the world did I like go to college? And like, no, we were very poor. There was also just no money. And when I think about what that factor is, it really is the unconditional love and acceptance of my mom. And it's it's almost like I wrote in that post that I knew that she is almost like she knew she couldn't provide me and my siblings with much of anything.
Yeah.
Like in terms of emotional safety, physical safety, uh, things like a stable home, like a house. Like we were homeless at times. Like it was insane life. But there was this. I always felt that she thought I was incredible.
Mm.
That there was this like unconditional delight. It's not just love. There was love there, but there was an unconditional acceptance. Like,
I love
like
that.
there was nothing I could do that would ever disappoint her, even. She could not feel disappointed by us, even if we royally messed up. And that inner knowing of one person seeing me kind of purely like that, like only in my beauty, or only in not physical beauty, but only in my essence.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't necessarily buy it. I've like spent the last 45 years buying that story,
Yeah. Yeah.
working on it, but having that kernel of unconditional love and acceptance that was like inside, it's enough in some ways. Like I
Mm.
think we look at ourselves as parents and we think, oh man, I really wanted to provide blankety blank for my kid, or I wish I hadn't made that mistake, or I wish I hadn't partnered with that person, or I wish their dad was different, or I wish we live someplace else or
Yeah.
something. And we get scared that we've messed them up.
Yeah.
But if they know deep down that you you think that they're incredible,
I love that. That
it's
is,
enough.
oh, that is such a beautiful sentiment. And I wholeheartedly agree with it. I think there's something to be said about that unconditional It's almost like it's like this third eye of really just seeing your child for just their whole, as a whole worthy being. And
Mm-hmm.
they're going to live their life and they're going to have, great highs and amazing successes and very low lows and really tough things that they're going to have to deal with the same way that you are. Probably not obviously the same path. Theirs is going to look different, but that doesn't mean that you've showed up wrong in some way or you're doing it all wrong or they're doing it all wrong. It's just really opening up to this idea of like, I can just love my child.
Yeah.
I can just
Yes.
love them.
And that
And
inherent worth, right? Like you're not what you do, you're not how you act, you're not what you succeed in or don't succeed in. I sometimes have issues with the word like I'm proud of you.
yeah,
I I feel like sometimes we use it conditionally
yeah,
and that can get messy. And it's like when we really what we want to hear from our parent is like, I think you're amazing. You can do no wrong in my eyes. Like you can do no harm. Your essential self is worthy and lovable.
and lovable.
Yeah.
Yes. That's such an important thing. And it's something that I do talk about on this podcast a lot in terms of, loving ourselves and recognize our
Mm-hmm.
own inherent worth and recognize our own lovability, but being able to open up to the idea that it isn't just us, that it is literally every other human being on this earth, even the ones who, are showing up in very terrible, bad ways. It's a hard concept to, I think, wrap your head around sometimes.
Hmm.
But when you can, and especially like maybe start practicing on your kids, maybe those are the ones that like maybe need it the most and where you can do the most good when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to opening yourself up to this idea of I'm going to love you and your worth and your value openly and
Yeah.
wholeheartedly. And how can I best do that as a parent? And when I
Mm-hmm.
do that as a parent, what is that going to do to our relationship? How is that going to create a better connection for the two of us? You
Well, it
know?
definitely creates that safety that we were talking about earlier, right? When you can trust that the person you're in a relationship with believes that at your core, you're good
You're good. Yeah, that's an
and that
important
you're
thing.
lovable and worthy. And yeah, I think a lot of times parents will say, I love you, but without realizing they're saying, I love you, but, and
Right.
we practice, the thoughts that we have about our kids really matter. And practicing, like I'm not like my mom, really, I think she didn't spend much time thinking we were like troublemakers and, annoying. And I don't know. I have a lot of negative thoughts about my kids. I have a lot of negative thoughts about the world. And
Yeah.
I have to work to overcome those negative thoughts.
I think
And
like most of us.
most of us, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think she was like kind of like an angel or something, Um, but I have to intentionally practice thinking thoughts about my children that are positive, that are hopeful, that are kind, that are, when I say hopeful, like thinking of their future is better than like worst case scenarioing. I can do that really easily, but best case scenarioing is harder. I have to work at it,
Yeah.
and I think that's a good exercise for any of the parents listening is just to write a delight list. It's one of the things I teach is
Beautiful.
sitting down and writing things that I delight in about my kids. And sometimes I teach it where you have to have on one side the delight list and one side like you're an asshole. Like because it's like you want to have a place to as you think about, oh, they're so funny, but sometimes they're mean. It's like, okay, go put that on the other list, right? And then just
Yeah.
practice. Oh, you're so funny, you know, um, you're so confident. You really love learning about technology or whatever, like whatever you can come up with. And framing your child in that way is so powerful. because
It
that
sounds powerful. I
yeah.
want to sit down and do this delight list. I've never heard, I mean, obviously, I've heard of lists and thinking about your kids in different ways, but I love this idea. Thank you so much for sharing even
Mhm.
just this idea of this delight list, because first of all, the word delight is a powerful word.
Mhm.
And I think usually we maybe think about it, at least I think about it in like terms of food for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah.
This is so delightful. It's so delightfully yummy or whatever. But
Uh-huh.
think about it in the way of your children. And, when they do something or they show up as
Mhm.
themselves in this way that is so delightful.
Mm.
That just is so fun and beautiful. But also I love that you have the opposite side as well, because
Yes.
there's going to be a part of you who is like, I really love my kid in this moment and they're amazing and they're the best. And then there's going to be another part of you who's like, why do you have to be such a piece of shit right now? Everything
Yes.
you're doing is driving me insane or whatever,
Yes.
right?
It's so easy. You're selfish. You're
Yes.
ungrateful,
Yes.
you're mean. Like we can come up with those really
Very
quickly.
easily. Yes.
Yeah. And
And
it's
so
like,
to have the two and not
mhm,
just pretend like they don't do any of these things that are annoying and, piss you
mhm,
off,
mhm.
because that is part of them as well. And it's
Yeah.
okay, right?
Mhm, mhm,
And let's train our brain to really focus on the beautiful, delightful parts of them as well.
mhm.
It's so natural for our brain, like you say, to go to the negative. It's easy. That's what it does naturally, right?
Yeah. Well, and as a parent, we feel like it's our responsibility to make sure we like get all those behaviors out. Like we need to change so
Let's get them
much.
under
We need to change.
control.
Yeah. So we're kind of looking for ways that our kids aren't measuring up or wrong or bad or whatever. Like we kind of teach parenting in this way in some ways. It's like, if your kid isn't acting right, it's your fault. And it's
Yes.
like, no, if your kid isn't acting quote unquote right, it's because they have big feelings that they don't know what to do with. That's
Right.
it. It's either unprocessed negative emotion or negative emotion they don't know what to do with. It, that's where all behavior comes from. And when we look at it that way, it's a lot easier to not judge and criticize and worry and blame. Instead, we can look at their behavior and think, what is going on here? And I wanted to circle back really quickly because the mistake we said is like to say, what's going on here? What are you feeling?
Yeah.
And I teach it differently where we offer a feeling
Mm,
and offer a narrative and then ask them, are we on the right track? So that because they don't know how to express or articulate that mess that's going on and all the jumble of thoughts. They don't know how to put that all into words and then communicate it to you in a sentence. And then you're standing there and you're like, what's going on?
right.
And they're like,
I
ah,
don't know.
yeah.
They're
And then,
probably just as confused as you are because they haven't quite been taught this, as you say, this narrative of how to put words to what's going on.
yes. And hopefully they're not just as confused as you. They want you to not be confused so that then they can trust there's a grown up that understands what is
Mm.
so complicated here.
Oh, I love it. That's a
And
beautiful way of putting it.
just being able to say, like, hey, I tomorrow you're going to dad's and you're talking about your shirt that you want and you're yelling at me. I wonder if you're feeling a little nervous about going. That's the connection tool. And that opens up a lot of understanding, even if they yell, no, what are you talking? You don't even get about it. Like, that's fine.
Right.
Like, okay, my bad. Just check, I don't know. Oops, right? Play dumb, walk away. Love you. I'm going to help you with your shirt if that's within your boundary. If it's not, it's okay too. And then but most of the time you do the connection tool a few times and then your child is like, yeah, every time I go there, whatever's coming out.
Yeah.
Or no, but this is what I'm thinking about. It's just that. And then you get it all.
Mm.
And at that point, we become as neutral as a piece of paper.
And just listen
Yeah.
and let them speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
And that, yeah,
powerful.
it's so powerful. It's
That
emotional
is.
coaching. Hmm.
That is amazing. And so what I'm getting from this is like a taste, just a little taste of what you do with your clients, which I think is so important because, obviously I try and do my best as a parent and but I don't know all of the things,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I just think it's so important to, if we have the desire to want to be a better parent and we have the means to be able to do that, there's just nothing better than getting somebody who can kind of mentor you through that process.
For sure.
And this conversation has just opened my whole mind up. I'm sure my listeners are loving every bit of information that you have offered today. Darlynn, can you
Yeah.
please tell us where we can find you if any of my listeners want to come and, get the help, the
Yeah.
specialized help that they may be needing
Yeah.
as a parent?
For sure. Well, I think learning from podcasts, like your listeners like podcasts, they're listening right now. And so listening on my podcast is probably a really great place to start knowing more about what I teach. And that's a free resource as all podcasts are,
Absolutely.
And that is called Become a Calm Mama. And going starting from the beginning would be really helpful too, because I kind of lay out the philosophies and where behavior comes from and how to regulate our nervous system, things that you talk about, and then moving into the parenting part of it.
Yeah.
And then coming in and hanging out in my world at calmmamacoaching.com. I have a free resource. It's the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. And so I kind of walk through the pause, break, kind of that what we talked about of, resetting our own nervous system
Yeah.
and regulating ourselves. So I have some tools there, kind of the ideas about what to do with your body. There's like a list of 40 plus things to do with your body when you're
That's
upset.
amazing.
Yeah.
Because
So
sometimes when
that,
we're in that space, it's like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what
yes.
to do. And so
Yeah. I always say
having
like
the guide right in front of
pick
you.
five and then just do those. Like, and then if
Love
you
it.
find they don't work, go back to the list and pick a couple different ones.
Yes.
Um, so that's a free resource, the Stop Yelling cheat sheet. And you get that at my website, calmmamacoaching.com. And then once you're in my world, I teach a parenting class called the Emotionally Healthy Kids course. And I run those like every 3 months, a new session starts. And so I'd love to have your audience in there. And then there's also the Emotionally Healthy Teen. So if you have like 3 to 12, you go to the kids class, and then 13 to 19 is the Emotionally Healthy Teens class. Because the
Beautiful.
process is the same, but the issues are so significantly different that
Yeah.
I separate
Yeah.
them.
Yes. Oh, I love it. This
Yeah.
has been the best conversation, and I'll make sure and have all of Darlynn's information in the show notes. So and nobody needs to worry about, oh no, I didn't write that down. I need to
Yeah.
rewind it 10 times. Don't worry. I will put everything in the show notes. So all the information and links will be there. But thank you so much for
Yeah.
coming on the podcast and really just offering your wisdom and guidance as this parenting expert, because, parenting is hard
It
and
is hard. It's something we do need to be taught strategies to do. And
yeah.
yet we don't think we need strategies because we were like, well, I was parented. And you're like, well, if you want to do it that way, go for it. But if
Oh,
you
I
want
can't
to,
even tell you how many times throughout my life I've been like, I am never doing that thing that my parent did, and I had pretty good parents. And so
Mhm.
yes,
Yes, we
100%.
need tools. Yeah. So
We
getting
need
support is so
tools.
helpful. Just like we need to learn how to manage our money or manage our bodies or what to eat. Like we need to know how to parent too. We need help.
We
Yeah.
do. Thank you again
You're
so much
welcome.
for
Thanks
being
you.
here.
Thank
If you like what you're learning on the podcast and you're ready to create lasting change and results in your life, then you need to be working one-on-one with Karen as your divorce coach. This is where we take everything you're learning in the podcast and 10x it with implementation and weekly coaching, where you start to see change in yourself and your life immediately. To find out more about how to work exclusively with Karen, go to www.karennelsoncoaching.com. That's www.KarinNelsoncoaching.com. Thanks for listening. If this podcast agreed with you in any way, please take a minute to follow and give it a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. And for more details about how I can help you live an even better life than when you were married, make sure and check out the full show notes by clicking the link in the description.